Hey, what's up? Welcome to Brands on Brands. I'm Brandon Birkmeyer. Today we are talking all about activating your brand purpose with Chip Walker. Chip Walker is based in New York. He's the head of strategy and partnership at Strawberry Frog, an ad agency in New York. How does a brand find its purpose and get clear on that? Because it's a lot of people, and an organization has a lot of kind of factors that go into it. So how does an organization go about finding their brand purpose?
Yeah, well, I mean, for me, the right way to think about purpose happens at the intersection of two things. One is your underlying business and what it is you do. What business are you in? And think of that as a circle has a concentric circle with how is it that you have ability to make the world a better place. And I feel like the intersection of those two things is usually the sweet spot for where a company's purpose lives. Because the problem is if you end up with a purpose that's all about making the world a better place, but people cannot tell how it's connected to your business, your employees, the public, everybody, it's a bit of a head scratcher.
Now, this idea of purpose, obviously, this has been around for a while. It's not a new concept. I think a lot of brands and businesses and people are aware like that they should be thinking about their values and their purpose. But what I like is you guys wrote this book and it starts to tap into this question, which is like, why is it so hard to take action and make a meaningful difference? But let's dive into that a little bit. Since this isn't new, why are they, and people might even have gotten to the point where like, hey, I know what my purpose is. What is stopping them, or why is it so hard to take action and make a meaningful difference?
Yeah. Well, my business partner, Scott Goodson, and I, we started noticing, I'd say in around 2017, 2018, as we had senior executives in companies that we were talking to, and the topic just kept coming up over and over again, that people wanted to talk about purpose and some help with purpose. And the thing that we noticed was that often the companies had already had like a consultant or somebody come in to lead them through a purpose exercise. And in fact, they might have had that happen more than once. So we would hear things like, okay, well, a year ago, we developed a purpose, but it didn't really go anywhere. And so then we developed another one, and we're still not sure what to do with it.
I bet you the next day of both of those occurrences, they were like, they were feeling great. And
Yeah.
then they got back to work.
Right, exactly. And I think one of the issues is that purpose is by its nature lofty. It operates way up in the stratosphere. So a lot of times you will develop a purpose statement and it sounds right and it sounds good, but when you really go back to the ranch and start thinking about, okay, what do we do now? You're just a little bit stumped. And that's really because it's hard to join a purpose, but you can join a movement inspired by a purpose. And in fact, that's really what a movement is. As I said, it's a collection of individuals rallying around a shared purpose to try to create change together because it's something that they believe in. And maybe I can give you an example. So one such client was a bank, a large bank called SunTrust. They recently merged with another bank called BB&T, or now called Truist, which we still work with them. But they came to us in, I think, 2015 or so. And they had developed a purpose that they were very excited about and proud of. It was called Lighting the Way to Financial Well-Being, which sounds great. I mean, who doesn't want to have the way lit to financial well-being for them? But again, it was this issue of, okay, well, if I'm a teller, so now what do I do? If I'm a banker, what do I do? If I'm in IT, what do I do? So we put purpose through the lens of what we call movement thinking. And what movement thinking tries to do is to figure out, well, is there some sort of dissatisfaction in the world in and around this purpose that we have as a company? Is there an enemy that we can fight as a shared collective to try to get to this goal? And if so, what kind of a stand do we want to take in the world? And I think what we started to realize that as around 2000, a big problem in the world in and around financial well-being was that a lot of people had never really recovered from the Great Recession. You saw in the news how so many people couldn't come up with $400 in an emergency. I mean, the recovery was just very, very, very uneven. So that was kind of a grouse that we had in the world as a company wanting to help people have well-being. And we saw that the enemy that's standing in the way of greater well-being was this incredible financial stress people were feeling, having trouble living from paycheck to paycheck, always feeling a lot of anxiety around money. So we decided that maybe the right thing to do was to take a stand for greater financial confidence for all Americans, be able to overcome that stress and get to well-being. So all of a sudden, we thinking about the movement we wanted to lead as one, as I said, for financial confidence for all Americans. So when we started to reframe their purpose in those terms around financial confidence, all of a sudden, if I'm a teller and I wake up in the morning, I start to say, okay, when I interact with customers today, I'm going to figure out how I can help make them more financially confident. If I'm a banker and I'm creating a new product, a new digital product, I'm going to try to gear it around things that we can do to help people overcome their anxiety and become more financially confident, and so on and so on and so on. But it turned out to be something that was really easy for employees to understand. It tied back to things that they already kind of knew how to do, like helping people pick the right products, helping them do financial education, et cetera. And before you know it, they were really getting much better employee engagement scores. And they really rallied around this movement. We call it the movement On Up, which is short for onwards and upwards. But ultimately, it was not just for folks internally at the bank. It was an external movement for my financial confidence for the general public. We ended up within 5 years getting about 6 million people who were part of it. And it was a huge success for them. But it's just an example of taking something lofty like lighting the way to financial being and translating it down into human terms like financial confidence that are a little bit easier for people to understand and act on.
Yeah, I mean,
but what movement thinking is all about.
yeah, I like the example. I think it lays out how you take something lofty and you turn it into something that seems more actionable. But it got me thinking. So looking back, it's easy to explain, but if someone's getting started, maybe they've defined their purpose, how do they take action and say, okay, I want to implement something like they talked about on the show today?
But we tend to think that there are sort of 4 steps to it, to getting the idea right. And to me, that is the single most important thing you can do, is to frame the idea so that it's less lofty and it's easier to see what to do with it. And there's sort of 4 pieces to that. We usually say, figure out what is the dissatisfaction that you have in the world. All movements start with some sort of a grievance. So what's the dissatisfaction that you and your followers all agree on? What is the desired change you'd like to see in the world? What's the enemy standing in the way of that change? And then what's the stand you're going to take to overcome the enemy? So for example, if we think about Smart Car, which is a car we launched, the tiny little smart car that looks like a roller skate or something. It was initially came to the market. I think a lot of people thought that it was really about more convenient parking and being cheap. And we really helped them sort of think through that there's a dissatisfaction out in the world of especially for urban dwellers who really are the market smart car. There are all of these wasteful, gigantic SUVs and giant cars that hog the road, cause a lot of pollution. You can't find any place to park, and they're just they're a blight. So that was kind of the dissatisfaction that we identified for Smart. The desired change was to really kind of maybe be an automotive company that helped restore the urban landscape to a more pristine condition where it wasn't crowded with all these bloated SUVs. So the enemy that we came up with was really just stupidly over-consuming. And the stand we had was for smarter, more conscious consuming. And the movement we ended up developing was called Against Dumb. And dumb was the shorthand for just being stupidly and blindly over-consuming all the time. And all of a sudden, it became a reason to buy this car that was it cheaper? Yes. Was it more easy to park? Yes. But it gave it a larger reason. It gave you a larger reason to want to buy and to kind of participate in a larger idea in and around this company. And it was easy for not only employees to know, okay, well, how do we talk about this vehicle? How do we build features and whatnot in and around it? But also something that was really easy for actual automotive consumers to want to participate in because it was a larger idea. So once we sort of framed things that way, it became a lot easier to see what to do.
Yeah, well, I hope people can look back at what we've been talking about today, because I think there's some lessons in here that if they are getting started, there's the idea that if they're not exactly in their right lane, like if their purpose doesn't align with their business, that could be a problem. And getting those things in alignment sounds like definitely a core pillar to this. And then making sure that there's something actionable, like you guys talk about with thinking of it as a movement and taking those principles from societal movements and applying them, making sure it's something people can actually kind of take part in is a huge concept. So I hope they've been getting it, because I think these examples are great ways to shine a light on that. Appreciate you. Thanks for taking the time to sit with us today and talk through this, Chip.
Thanks so much, Brandon. It's been great. Really a big pleasure being here. Thank you.
Appreciate you guys listening, and we'll catch you next time.
Brands on Brands.